Doesn't it feel great to be alive? What is wrong with the beautiful game of baseball? Let me ask you this one question. Is the game of baseball a controversial sport? Is the game of baseball a fighting sport? Or is the game of baseball just America's pastime? And the only reason I ask you guys this one big question, or two-part big question, is because the past two nights in MLB baseball, or the game of baseball in general, we have seen stuff in baseball that is not supposed to be in the game of baseball. So I ask you guys this again. What is changing and what is wrong, and where has the game of baseball truly gone? And in this episode of Main Event Baseball with Ryan, we are going to talk and address all of that. Okay, baseball fans, it is time for us to address and even talk about the past two nights in Major League Baseball. We have seen, in the past two nights, we have seen a baseball brawl, which we're going to get to in just a little bit. We've seen literally a face-to-face threatening conversation that almost turned into a brawl or fight. And all of that has happened in two separate MLB games in the past 2 days or nights. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, let's go back to what we kind of talked about a little bit on the channel yesterday. All right, 2 days ago, Fenway Park, game one of a 3-game series between the Milwaukee Brewers and the Boston Red Sox. Brendan Woodruff was on the mound for the Milwaukee Brewers in that game, guys, and Brian Bello taking the ball for the Boston Red Sox. Okay, now it kind of came later in the game. Brendan Woodruff taking on Wilson Contreras. Wilson Contreras would be hit by a pitch on the hand. Now, even though he was hit by a pitch and it barely skinned his hand, Wilson Contreras had a lot to say to Milwaukee Brewers starting pitcher Brendan Woodruff. Particularly not really nice things to say. Now, we talked a little bit about this last night on the channel, and I definitely still want to know what you guys think of it down below in the comment section. But the main thing about all this is, now in the past 2 nights, I have to ask myself, has the game of baseball changed? Now, because when Wilson Contreras went to first base, and luckily his younger brother, the catcher for the Milwaukee Brewers, William Contreras, intervened and got Wilson to go down to first base, Wilson was still chirping at Milwaukee Brewers starting pitcher Brendan Woodruff. Okay, now you also got to understand, and I know I talked about this last night, and I said it yesterday on the episode, but it was the 20th time in Wilson's career that he has been hit by a pitch by the Milwaukee Brewers. It has been the 6th time that Brendan Woodruff has hit Wilson Contreras. And the one threat that Wilson Contreras said in the post-game show 2 nights ago is, the next time I get hit by a pitch by a Milwaukee Brewer pitcher, I am taking one of them out. Of course, the threat, a verbal threat of violence. And we'll talk a little bit more about that threat later in the episode. But now you go from that incident at Fenway Park 2 nights ago, and you go all the way to the West Coast, particularly Anaheim, California, Angels Stadium, and it was the Atlanta Braves and the LA Angels of Anaheim, another interleague series. But we go to the bottom of the 5th inning, where Rolando Lopez taking on Jorge Soler. Now, these two are not just really good ball players, they're former teammates. They won the World Series together at one point. And in a matter of fact, they're also from the same country in the Dominicana of the Dominican Republic. Now, Rolando Lopez throws a 95-mile-an-hour fastball, a little up and in, if you know what I mean, at Jorge Soler. It bounces off the backstop. The catcher for the Atlanta Braves tries to throw out the runner at second. The runner at second is called safe. And then all hell breaks loose. And what I mean by that, guys, is Rolando Lopez said something to Jorge Soler. Now, we couldn't exactly find out what exactly did he say. We can't find that out. But we can acknowledge that it triggered Jorge Soler, and he stormed the mound. And next thing you know, Lopez of the Braves and Jorge Soler of the Angels are fighting, brawling it out. And this is where I ask the one question. Has the game of baseball became a fighting sport instead of America's pastime? Because we have had 2 separate instances in 2 separate games in the past 2 days in Major League Baseball. Now, in this game of the Angels-Braves, only 2 men were ejected, the pitcher Lopez of the Braves and Jorge Soler. They were ejected for fighting, okay? And there were punches thrown in that game. And a matter of fact, everybody else between the 2 teams was trying to separate them and break up the brawl. Atlanta Braves manager Walt Weiss tackled Jorge Soler. And the reason he did it, number one, when Jorge Soler was on the Atlanta Braves, Walt Weiss was the bench coach. So Walt Weiss and Jorge Soler do know one another. And if there's really anybody on the Atlanta Braves that can calm Jorge Soler down, it would be Walt Weiss, because he was a coach of Jorge Soler at one point when Soler was with the Atlanta Braves. Now, this is where I get to ask you guys the $1 million question. Has the game of baseball gone down the wrong road? You know, we always say pretty much every year that the game of baseball is changing, okay? But I have to ask, you know, we've seen 2 very vulnerable confrontations in 2 separate MLB games in the past 2 days. And so I have to bring up the question, okay? So, again, guys, I want to know, I have a feeling some of you guys are going to leave it down below in the comment section or say that the game of baseball is not changing in that wrong direction. Now, let me ask you guys this, okay? Rolando Lopez of the Atlanta Braves throws 95 miles an hour up and in to Jorge Soler. Again, guys, it didn't hit Jorge Soler, okay? But then Lopez chunked something at Soler, and that's what ticked Soler off. Okay, so here's my question, okay? Was Lopez in the wrong? Was Soler in the wrong? Were both of them in the wrong? Because you got to understand, if you really look a lot close, Lopez of the Braves, he kind of triggered Jorge Soler. It's not throwing up and in at him like he did. It's basically him jumping off, and so again, they were the only two ejected in last night's ball game. I wanted to know if any disciplinary action has been given to either of them. The answer is no as of the moment. It can change over time, guys, but first we have the Wilson Contreras and Brendan Woodruff incident, and then the very next night, we in a separate game, we have that incident. Okay, and I'm pretty sure most of you baseball fans know exactly what I'm talking about. But if you guys were in MLB front office, what would you give the punishment? I'm not talking about Brendan Woodruff and Wilson Contreras. I'm talking about Lopez and Soler from last night. If you guys had the power to punish them or give them a consequence for their actions in last night's game, what would it be? I would love to hear it down below in the comment section. So please let me know. I'm all open to hear what you guys have to say and what you guys have to think. But kind of a crazy moment in last night. It went, it kind of went from being a MLB baseball game to a few seconds or minutes of fighting. Definitely not what the game of baseball should be about. And then for the remaining of the game, both teams were given a warning. Thank God I did not end this episode. What is up, main event baseball fans, guys? So, like I said earlier in this episode, we kind of talked about what happened last night in the Braves-Angels game between Rolando Lopez and Jorge Soler. They got into a little brawl, a little fight. Punches were thrown. Well, I said earlier in the episode that there were no suspensions given, guys. That has changed. Earlier today, MLB handed out a 9-game suspension to both Rolando Lopez and Jorge Soler. But here's actually the catch. Within a few hours after the suspensions were handed down, MLB decided that Atlanta Braves pitcher Rolando Lopez will serve a 5-game suspension, okay? So this morning, Lopez and Soler were both given a 9-game suspension. Within a few hours after that, Rolando Lopez was given from a 9-game suspension to a 5-game suspension. Jorge Soler, on the other hand, not really the lucky one. He will be given a 9-game suspension. Because I do want to get your thoughts down below in the comment section on what you think of all this. Do you guys agree with Rolando Lopez going from a 9-game to a 5-game suspension and them not doing anything about Jorge Soler's suspension? Now, both Jorge Soler and Rolando Lopez, guys, have appealed the suspensions, guys. I do want to know your guys' input down below in the comment section about that. So definitely let me know, guys. But I'm shocked, okay? I kind of knew that Lopez and Soler, after last night's, brawl a little bit, they were both going to be given suspensions, guys. It's just, the way the game of baseball has been played and dealt with over the years, guys. When you fight in a game, you're definitely going to get a suspension one way or another. But, it's amazing, okay, to me, that they went from a 9-game to a 5-game for Rolando Lopez, okay? So Rolando Lopez will not miss his next start in case any of you guys have him on fantasy baseball. He definitely will not miss a start. But Jorge Soler, 9-game suspension. You got to understand, though, even though Rolando Lopez technically started this, baseball brawl last night, the first punch was thrown by Jorge Soler. And a lot of times when there is like a brawl, okay, in a MLB game, they don't care on chirping. Okay, that's not the thing. They want to know who threw the first punch. And that's really what matters most to the front office of MLB, okay? But I bet you guys have looked at the footage a lot, and you all know that Jorge Soler threw a first punch without a doubt. So I want to know from you guys, definitely, do you agree with what MLB did about Rolando Lopez going from a 9-game to a 5-game suspension? Or do you think he should get the exact same as Jorge Soler? Now, guys, I'm not going to go about my opinion. I would like to hear from you guys on what you guys believe on that. But yeah, very crazy night at Angel Stadium in Anaheim last night between the Braves and the Angels, guys. Definitely, Rolando Lopez and Jorge Soler, at one point, they were teammates on the Atlanta Braves, and they ended up winning the World Series together back in 2021. And next thing you know, they go from being once teammates to brawling it out on a baseball diamond. So, like a crazy, I mean, like I said, right from the beginning of this episode, the past 2 nights in MLB baseball have been crazy in 2 separate baseball games at the MLB level. So, like I said, right from the get-go, at the beginning of the episode, where is the game of baseball going, and is it going in the right direction? That's a big concern of mine. Is baseball really going in the right direction? And all that, because we had the Brendan Woodruff, Wilson Contreras jibber jabber 2 nights ago, and then the very next night, which was last night, we had that little brawl going on. So I gotta ask, really, where is the game of baseball going, and is it going in a downhill thing? So definitely, literally, I have to ask the legitimate question: where is the game of baseball going, and is it even going towards the right direction? When you go to a baseball game, you should not be able to go on to, watch a brawl happen, so that's only why I'm asking. Okay, so definitely that's the only reason I'm asking. Okay, guys, I think that's a good place to end this episode, but I am going to leave you guys with a 2-part question. Question number 1 is, what do you think of these suspensions regarding Rolando Lopez and Jorge Soler last night? And do you agree with MLB going for Rolando Lopez? Do you agree that they went from a 9-game to a 5-game suspension? And then where do you think the game of baseball is going, and is it going in the right direction? Apparently, over the past 2 nights, we have seen the game of baseball get physical, so that's why I ask you guys, where do you think the game of baseball is heading? And all of that. But yeah, last night, guys, crazy brawl went off, took place between Rolando Lopez and Jorge Soler. And the crazy thing about it is, at one point, they were teammates and very close at the MLB level. So that's kind of like the big time crazy. But, I mean, egos, personalities colliding, it's never a good thing. So, but I'm going to stop right there, guys. So make sure you drop a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe down below if you're not a subscriber already, guys. And crazy night the past 2 nights. And hopefully on a calm Wednesday, we will have none of that for the games today. But have a great rest of your Wednesday and your whole day. And I will see you all right back here in the next episode.